All right, welcome to our color investigation painting. This painting is going to be awesome. It's going to be completely abstract. It's going to teach us about mixing a lot of variety of colors and get you ready to do something that is representational from real life, and you'll have a little more choice in that one. But this is going to be a really cool abstract painting in the meantime that will help us get ready for that. So there are 4 really big I can statements in this. We're going to focus on the first 2 today. It says, I can create a non-representational painting using a simple geometric shape. Non-representational means it doesn't represent real life. I'm not trying to make a picture of a house, a picture of a city, a picture of a butterfly, nothing. It's not a thing. It's just shapes. The next one says, I can create variations of a color using tints and shades. If you haven't had me before, you might not know what tints and shades are, but you will soon. And the next 2, which we'll focus on later, I can identify and use complementary colors. And you did have an introduction to complementary colors, so hopefully that sounds familiar to you. And I can reflect on and consider the impact of complementary colors, I should say, in my painting. So we will be taking a look and discussing, hey, how did that work or not work? How did you feel about those complementary colors? Once we get there, today, we're going to get most of our painting done in just these 2 first I can statements. So here's an example. It's not finished. This is where my complementary colors are going to go. But you can see I chose one color, which was orange, and I made a bunch of variations of orange. I also picked one shape, which in this case was triangles. The thing about triangles that got a little tricky are these little tiny spots. And I don't really have a lot of small brushes at home, so it got kind of messy in there. So that's something to consider. Squares might have a little more wiggle room in them. So I started drawing out a square one here. If you're going to do squares, rectangles, make sure you use a ruler. I know we don't have a lot of rulers. They're in kind of bad shape, but you want to have, you want to definitely use a straight line. You also want to draw lighter than I am. I am drawing so dark just so that it shows up on the video. So you're going to just use a ruler and fill your paper with squares, rectangles, or triangles. I tried to do it with circles, and it just really wasn't working all that well. So I would not suggest circles. I really wouldn't. We want to just as simple shape as we can because we want to have a variety of sizes, but we want to stick with one shape because our focus really is on color. So I'm going to take a second, finish this, and then we'll talk about color. Okay, so I have my squares. In some of these places, you just have to think, okay, yeah, there's a rectangle there, but it's in the back. That's okay. So nice and straight lines, variety. I have some small ones. This one's quite big. I might decide to break that up later. I want you to have 10 to 20, maybe around 20% of your painting to be left for the complementary colors later on. So take a second when you get this far. First of all, you need to show it to me, and then you need to tell me, hey, I'm going to use this color. Okay, at this point, put your name on there. Show it to me. Ms. Tubbs, I want to use red, blue. You can use any of the basic colors, except I would not suggest yellow. We're using tempera. Tempera yellow is very see-through. It's difficult to mix with. So you can use red, blue. You can use orange, green, or violet, purple. So you just want to pick one of those colors. That's going to be your main color for the majority of your painting. When you get that color, you're also going to get white and black. And this is where we mix in tints and shades. Tints are when you mix with white. Shades are when you mix with black. We're not going to do our whole painting with just tints and shades, but this is a good place to get started. So you're going to get the main color that you told me you're going to have, white and black to start with. And we're going to make some versions of blue. We're going to make a lot of this painting blue. After we get that going, we're going to get the analogous colors to blue and make some other versions of blue as well. But again, it's always going to really come back to being blue because that's our main painting color, just like orange was the first time in my painting. So if I want to make, I can use this blue, just this color blue, and I can just paint that right on here. That's totally fine. Definitely do that. Paint 2 or 3 of them with the straight color. But then you're going to mix some of it too. And I had a kind of water on my brush, so it got kind of thin there. So I might need a decent amount of paint to get it thicker again. You don't really want to mix water with this paint. You just want it for washing your brush out. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a version of blue. So you can see how this looks different than the blue there because I'm making a light blue. Red is going to make pink. So that's something to know. Red is going to make pink. Blue, light blue. Orange, kind of a peach color. Purple, light purple. Green, light blue. So most of them it's not a problem, but sometimes people get red and then I say, you know, that's going to make pink, right? And then they're like, never mind, I don't want that. So just nothing wrong with pink, but you should know that ahead of time. All right, so then I'm going to paint in here. And it, you know, we talked about a little bit about craftsmanship, I think, when we were doing our very first project, about taking the marker and going around the edges first. And you want a nice clean edge. And I told you guys, I don't have very good brushes at home. They're kind of beat up and junky. Actually, I probably do have some good ones somewhere. I just couldn't find them and not a lot of time to look for them. So I'm trying to use the edge of this somewhat flat brush to create the edge. And then I can come in and fill it in a little bit better. If I accidentally get outside, I can try to paint over it. With tempera though, once it gets wet, because it's somewhat washable, it will pick up and mix with the color on top of it. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, now that I made this light blue, I'm going to paint it in a couple of places. I'm going to kind of bounce around. Hey, I'm going to make this one that light blue, and don't paint it like that. Take your time, fill it in nicely. And then I'm going to make another version of blue. So this time, I'm washing my brush out. Ideally, you would have some paper towel by you, which I do not have. But you would have some paper towel by you, and it would help you to dry out your brush so you don't end up watering down your paints. So here's some blue, and I'm taking it away from there because I don't want to ruin that. And when I'm trying to make a shades, black is a strong color. I really just need a touch of black to try to mix in there. Ooh, that's kind of a nice color. Maybe I like that, this grayish blue here, or maybe it got too dark, and then I'd want to get more blue. Mix it in there, but does it still look blue? That's what you need to ask yourself. Does it still look whatever the color you originally had was? Because if it doesn't look like that color still, don't use it. Okay, you want most of your painting to be one color, whatever that hue was that you chose at the beginning. So you're gonna bounce then whatever color you made now. You're gonna do that a few times. I'm gonna paint that here, here, here. I'm gonna paint it 3 times or so. Now, tempera can be kind of thin, especially if you accidentally gets too much water in there. So if you don't like the way it looks, because it's too thin and you can see the paper through it, let it dry for a second and just paint another coat on there. Just don't use up all your paint, or mix some more of that exact color, and then you can put on another coat once it's dry. Okay, so let's say that I painted that a few times. I painted my regular blue a few times. Now I can start to mix in some of those analogous colors. So let me grab those. So analogous colors, as I know you know, are the colors next to that color on the color wheel. So I don't have a color wheel at home, but we have one in the classroom. Look at it. What's next to your color? Next to blue, on one side there's green, and on the other side there's purple. So I have a little bit of purple, a little bit of green, and I only want a touch of those colors. I still want the majority of it to be blue, right? That's my main color here. So I've got my blue, and I'm going to mix in just a tiny bit of purple. Ooh, that's really pretty. That's a really pretty kind of cobalt blue. I don't want too much purple because I don't want it to look purple. I want people to look at it and say, oh yeah, that's a blue. So if it's getting to be too purple, then I got to add more blue. But I think that's still pretty blue looking. I don't know how well you can see it on the video. And then that's another color that I can use on my painting. Green, mix it separately, different spot. I don't want to mix purple and green, but I can mix blue and green. You might be wondering, hey, can I throw some white in there? Can I throw some black in there? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're just making a little family here of colors. Kind of a bluish green, as long as I've got lots of blue in there. Cool, I can use that color in here now. So I'm starting to get all of these colors just based on having used blue. And I forgot to tell you something really important. Because you are going to keep, I started to talk about it and I got distracted even at my own house. So even though I said, remember, you want like 20% or less of your painting to be that complementary color. Really, before you start painting, you should do this. You should try to envision, okay, your paper's going to be bigger than mine. I'm working in my sketchbook, but you are going to think, okay, half of my paper's 50%. half of that half would be 25%. So a little less than that. In my case, maybe it's 3 shapes. I'm going to save 3 shapes by putting a little like X there. Don't paint me, don't paint me, and don't paint me. To kind of bounce around. Those I'm saving to be my complementary colors. Okay. If you don't mark them at the beginning, you may very well forget and accidentally paint them. It's very easy to do that. So mark a few to save for later. Here's that orange one. And I did put like a little dot in here. I don't want to get the blue all over. It's going to get all over. But there's a dot here and a dot here. I had a dot here and I still painted over it. So I ended up leaving that one. So make sure that you do go ahead and mark a few before you start painting. So that's the goal, to get your whole paper with as many versions of that hue that you chose at the beginning, using first tints with white, shades with black, and then maybe the next day coming back with those analogous colors. Always leading back to being the basic color that you started with, and leave a few spots for complementary colors, which we'll talk about in the next video.